So, where do I start about what I like about the coal pits? I think the coal pits is honestly one of the better zones in Noise, honestly. There's a lot of things they did right in the spawn, which they don't quite hit well same with other places. I think this is the first place that the player can really realize that the game is simulated down to every pixel. For example, these toxic sludge puddles here. If I had water right now, then I could put water in there and all of it would be first over. I don't think that quite fully encapsulates it though. Let me get some from here. As while I can make this basic water and toxic sludge interaction, I can also do that almost anywhere in the game. Something that's different about the coal pit, however, is there's these little pieces of gold all over the place, like here for example. Even down here, in here, a bit here. And there's a very small detail to these, which I think a lot of people might overlook at first or not think too hard about. But I think it goes a very long way in showing you that every individual pixel really does matter. It's not chunks of pixels or this entire pool of water over here. Every single individual pixel does matter in this game. And I'm going to show you why I think that. So if I put a bomb down here and take a step back, you'll see that all this terrain here was unaffected by that bomb. That's because the bomb ray traced every single possible pixel it could have gone against, and when it hit the gold, it saw, hey, there's gold blocking me from accessing these pixels over here. I should not be allowed to break those, and so it didn't. And I think that very small interaction goes a very long way in showing the player that every individual pixel really matters in this game. And the coal pits is the only biome that has these random deposits of gold around, ignoring the potential gold rains event that can happen. And I think that's kind of a shame, really, since there's not too many opportunities where you get that level of pixel precision in the game. Sure, I could throw another bomb and blow up a whole area of terrain here. All these pixels would go, every single one of them, but I wouldn't see the pixel precision that you see here, the gold. And I think that's one of the strong suits Coal Pits has, honestly, over a lot of other biomes. These lava flies are another great example. They can bleed lava. Even a single pixel can land on you and it will start burning. I can put like water and blood on it and it'll react. I can kick their corpse, make a little bit more lava come out. And if I can get some lava to land with the coal here, I believe it will catch fire. So it's a lot easier said than done. It's stuck on moss right now. And it's been converted over to volcanic sand. But lava can react with coal to make fire, I'm pretty sure. Or hell, even fire down here, for example. You can see it's burning away the coal. And it will just keep on going and going and going until there's no coal left to burn. And this is, I would say, realistic to some extent. Since coal, it'll just sit there and burn, burn, burn until there's nothing left to burn through. And that's another very strong example of how every individual pixel is simulated in this game. Another thing I very much like about coal pits is the enemy selection. Now, on the first floor, you have fairly basic enemies. Maybe you have a hound, the shotgunners, the TNT people. If you're lucky, maybe you'll encounter one of the fire guys or a sludge of some kind, but I think the coal pits enemy selection is where the game really starts to take off. since it has one of the very few enemies in the game which properly utilize the every pixel simulate mechanic. And that enemy is the bat, both the big one and the small one. As when you damage them, they'll start to bleed slime, and slime normally slows you down if you're touching it. It's sort of a stage hazard of sorts. You want to wash slime off you as soon as possible, since being slow in any video game, not just Noita, is a massive detriment. It makes it harder to dodge, it makes it harder to get where you need to go. Here's one. Yeah. So here's some of the bats I was talking about. They'll fly around, they'll try to leap at me. They're a fairly very basic enemy, but where they differ from most other basic enemies is when I damage them, they'll create the aforementioned slime, and here's more of them. They usually appear in a group of like 4 or 5, I believe. I can pick up their gold, everything's normal. But if I didn't have the slime blood perk right now, this slime would actively be slowing me down. See, the mucus makes moving around difficult. And that is a stage hazard by the enemy. And every single pixel of slime here can do that. I can kick this out and slime start flowing downwards. Now I could maybe stand safely here, for example, when the slime's done. Now this place is more dangerous. This is just a very good example of how you can make use of every pixel being simulated for an enemy. And this is something I feel is generally underutilized in this game. There's not many enemies out there who bleed hazardous materials. The Hisi base, no adapter tanks, they bleed oil, that can catch fire. That's an excellent use of every pixel being simulated in an enemy. The bats, as I've said, they bleed slime. That is a threat. But outside of those two examples, you don't really have anything which presents a threat in the blood it bleeds. I suppose there's also the fire mages and the fire bats, or bugs if you want to call them that, as well as the hell enemies, but I don't think those quite work on the same level where slime does, where it will react with the environment in a unique way that other liquids don't have the same interaction with. For example, I'm killing these, and instead of just flowing downwards normally, it's sticky, it's slow, it takes time to get where it needs to be. It shows you that not all liquids are made equal, and that's a pretty big thing, I think. I think the game would genuinely benefit a lot more from interesting blood types from enemies. And it's just another point which reinforced my idea that the coal pits is the best stage in Noita. Another interesting thing I like about this place is these canisters. See, I can get with these enemies. Another example of every pixel being simulated there. I killed the firebug and his lava went down onto the Hisi I was fighting to burn him to death. But these canisters, there's a few things you can do with them. You can kick them, they'll go flying, they'll explode. This is an excellent demonstration of how the game has a sort of tension and kinetics mechanic, where if something hits a wall too hard, it does have the possibility of breaking. And that's a very important feature, not every game has that. A lot of games, something can go flying at a wall violently and be completely fine afterwards. In Noita, however, if I kick this canister violently and it hits the ground, then it will explode into a massive flames. And here you have some coal here catching fire. This whole stack might burn up if I wait long enough. Again, just a really good example of how every pixel is simulated. Okay, and here's another very rare example, this worm enemy here. This is a very good example of rare enemies in Norsa. So the coal pits, if you didn't know, it's possible for worms to spawn down here. I'm not sure if this was a modifier or just a natural spawn. I think this is a natural spawn because this is the first worm I've seen down here. But Noisa has a lot of very rare things which can happen, And a lot of those rare things don't happen in the first biome too often. The second biome, however, things happen a lot more frequently. Those rare events. Now, I'm not sure why. I know a lot of the weathers, I guess you could call them, happen a lot more frequently in the coal pits compared to the first biome. But very rare occurrences are almost commonplace in Noita. There's so many rare 1000 events which occur, and that's what makes Noita special. In any one run, there's 1000 different things could happen, and just having a worm appear is one of them. You could get some worm blood that could give you a massive advantage, letting you see through walls. I'll try to get some here, but I'm not sure if I have the opportunity, honestly. There's too much water in there. But rare possibilities are a very strong selling point in Naruto, I feel like. And the Coal Pits does a good job of presenting them to the player in a way that the mines just cannot. Since in the mines, a lot of the time, everything will be the same. You go down to the right, maybe you go to the tablet, maybe just get a little bit of gold and you move on to the next biome. Nothing really too special or interesting you can do there. Whereas in the Coal Pits, there's a whole myriad of things that can happen. Speaking of a myriad of things that can happen, this big bat here, this is an excellent introduction to the player on how to, or rather show the player, that Naruto values your time and values you exploiting it. Naruto invites you to exploit it. This bat particular is special because he'll create an infinite amount of small bats. He'll spit them out towards you. Let me see if I can get one here without putting myself in danger. You want to shoot one, buddy? Yep, there we go. See, he just spat one out. We'll spit them. I think this guy's going to drown to death. Yep. I'll take that. And he'll do that forever, infinitely. There is no upper limit to how many bats he can create. He'll just keep on spitting them and spitting them and spitting them as long as he's alive and can see you. And this is interesting because it offers the player a chance to learn and take note of that. If the player realizes the bat will make an infinite number of babies, then something they could do is intentionally keep this big bat alive and have them constantly spit out their children over and over and farm them for gold. You could get 100 gold using this method, 1000 gold, even 10,000 if you were patient enough. And all you need to do is sit here and wait for him to make children over and over and over again. And I think that strongly shines a light on what Noita values as a game. Noita, as I said before, strongly encourages the player to exploit it. You can make all these insane one builds, all these crazy things that can happen, and the bat being exploited for infinite gold is a good introduction to the player that the game values you exploiting it. The game tries to cheese you, and it's up to you to cheese it in return. And learning opportunities like these are invaluable in games. There's so many games I can think of where they just don't offer these natural learning moments. But the Coal Pits has this right here for you. It's not spelling it out for you, it's not giving you any hints like, hey, there's a fire guy here, maybe you should put water on him. No, it's just a simple interaction, and it's purely up to the player to observe it and realize they can exploit it in some way. Seems a worm was down here. Another example of one of those rare things that can happen. You know, maybe I've never seen this rock be broken before. I've never seen Streamlet's rock be broken. But now, because a worm was kind enough to break it for me, thanks to it spawning around the coal pits, I could now wander down here and go wherever I want. I think it went off to a different biome. I'm not too sure, honestly. Doesn't really matter, since that's not what I'm here for. The important part is I've never seen something like this before. And Here it is. Another rare occurrence to intrigue me as a player. What do these holes mean? Should I follow them? Is it worth the risk? Where's it going to take me? Coal Pit strongly encourages that adventurous feeling in a player. Speaking of adventurous feeling, something else Coal Pits does very well is it doesn't feel like the mines. It doesn't feel like you're in the mines right now. It is very similar structurally, while feeling like an entirely unique place. Everything feels like it's hotter, there's more fire everywhere. The mining infrastructure just isn't as prevalent as it was in the mines. There's a lot more strange monsters here that you don't recognize from the last biome, while still keeping that level of familiarity to make sure you're not feeling overwhelmed. I think that's a very impressive part on the developer's behalf, as a lot of the time, people want something familiar but fresh. And Coal Pits is that perfect example of it feeling similar to the mines. It's familiar, but it's fresh. There's a whole new spin on it. You have these overhanging props. You can kick them down, see how there's a tension mechanic. Bit of gravity going on here, break that chain, you can ride it. There's these piles of coal which will catch fire. Whole different vibe to the level in general. Everything just feels so much more unique while still feeling natural. The game isn't forcing you, isn't telling you, hey, everything's different now. It's how new everything is. It doesn't get in your face about it. It just shows you, hey, welcome to the coal pits. This is what we have. And that's another impressive thing. One thing I also want to highlight here is pay close attention to the background wall of the coal pits. You'll notice there's a nice red, kind of rocky, almost rustic look to it. And I feel a lot of the time the background art is underappreciated in Noita. There's these really beautiful canvases behind us, and we just don't really pay attention to them. Look, there's these beautiful rocks coming down, these magnificent rocks in the background. A nice little prop here, some kind of mining beams. Mostly support, a lot of wires in the background. More rocks, more stalagmites, I believe those are called. I think stalactites are the ones on the ground, stalagmites are the ones at the ceiling. I might be wrong with that. But there's just so many small details in the background. There's a story being told here. Look, people are mining here. There's a deep, rich, twisting cave system. There are people here in the coal pits, excavating it. There's gold they're mining, there's these resources they're putting up to help themselves carry materials, get rocks out of the way, helping prevent cave-ins by keeping these wooden beams in place. There's so much going on in the background, and yet we barely notice it. Coal Pits has a beautiful background, and it's something people should pay more attention to. There's just so many beautiful backgrounds in Norsa, and I think Coal Pits has one of, if not the best one. Another interesting thing Coal Pits does is, fun fact, Coal Pits has the most heart spawns in the entire game on average. You are more likely to get a max health pickup in the Coal Pits than anywhere else in the game. And this is another very good thing Coal Pits does to incentivize your exploration of the area. It says, hey, if you look around the place, maybe see what's behind this wood here, what's underneath that coal, what's behind that wall there, we will reward you with a max health increase or a chest, one or the other. And that's just another one of the subtle things that Coldpits does to incentivize and encourage the player to explore every single corner of it. And again, that's something that I feel isn't recognized or done too much in a lot of modern game design. Things are either very in your face with an on-screen pop-up, or they neglect tutorializing the player towards these mechanics of exploration. Coldpits, I feel, does a very good job of telling the player, without directly telling them, to explore. Oh, there's a mimic there. And look at every tiny area you can, because there's so much for you to gain if you just take the time to investigate, explore, wander around a bit. There's so much for you to gain. And it's not as if Coldpits is forcing you, it's not outwardly telling you. There's no pop-up saying, hey, explore every single area, look for secrets, you want to find every hidden piece available to you. It just keeps them there and lets you find it yourself. I feel the mere act of rewarding the player for exploring alone is enough to train them to want to be investigative, because it sets the premise that if I explore in very strange and out there places, then I am likely to discover something of value. Maybe if I go behind the extremely dense rock in the top right of the map, I could find the gold room, for example. I'd wonder what's at the bottom of the lake. Maybe I'll find the essence of spirits. There's a very large number of things being encouraged here just by the mere act of hiding hearts behind walls. Because by incentivizing the player and rewarding them for exploration, you're then later encouraging them to make these further discoveries later down the line when they have much more powerful digging resources to work with. And that's one of the big things of Noita, where things are very hidden. You have the Null Altar, which is just somewhere in the world. You have the Friend Cave, all the bosses, the orb rooms, both of the gold biomes, Infinite Robot, Power Plant, Infinite Hell, the Work, the Sky. All these hidden little things. And the player is indirectly, or I would say borderline, almost directly encouraged to adventure and find these places just by the sheer act of rewarding them now in the early world of the Coldpits. Coldpits is setting up that incentive, that encouragement, that premise that if you explore, you will find very good things. And it doesn't need to tell the player, it doesn't need to say, do this, do that. It just needs to put a few hearts down in the right place, and all of a sudden, you're encouraged to explore. Going back to my point of rare occurrences, by the way, this is another good example of a rare occurrence. Very rarely in the Coldpits, you can encounter this slime ghost spirit. Now, you won't always find him here, sometimes you won't see him, sometimes you might, but this slime ghost is another perfect example of tutorialization. First of all, he's very rare to appear, so it teaches the player sometimes things will very rarely be different, so I should keep my guard up in case something weird appears that I'm not familiar with. And it also teaches them how these ghost enemies work without putting the player in any real danger. So as you can see, the ghost will try to follow me, and if I enter his little aura here, then I'll be inflicted with the slimy stat effect, similar to the slime that the bats bleed. So I can learn, oh, the bats, when I touch their slime, they give me a slowing down effect, and when this purple ghost, his aura, touches me, I also get that same stat effect. I already know what this does, I don't need to panic and be confused because I've been taught both by the slime before and this ghost who isn't attacking me that slime is not a directly harmful effect, but it will normally slow me down and make it difficult to move. It's something I should be wary of. Now, if I find any similar ghost enemies in the future, like the anger ghost, the confusion ghost, even the vulnerability ghost, I will know that one, they are rare enemies, and two, that if I enter their aura here, then I will have a status effect inflicted upon me, and that status effect is likely to correlate with the color that the ghost is, since this purple ghost here is giving me a purple status effect, the slime status. This is a very good example of tutorialization, where again the game doesn't need to do a pop-up on screen to tell me this is a ghost enemy. When you enter its radius, you will have a status effect applied to you which correlates with the ghost color. No, just the mere existence of it is enough for me to look at the ghost and study its behavior and realize that this is how it functions. This is how these ghost-themed enemies operate. And something else that this ghost teaches you is it doesn't just afflict me with the slime sass. For example, if I go down here, I believe it is. Maybe, yeah, up here. You can see this mimic over here, which we previously discovered, is also getting affected by the slime status, as I'm being covered in purple sparks, and so is the mimic over there. What does this teach us? This is teaching me, a potentially brand new player, that these ghost enemies don't just affect the player, they affect everything nearby them. So if I find a ghost which, for example, inflicts a status effect which makes me take 10 times my normal damage, I can flip that on my enemies by keeping the ghost nearby them and using it to kill them quickly. This could be useful against a boss even, if I'm willing to carry them all the way over there, any number of circumstances. It's something I can use. This ghost is not strictly an enemy, it is a tool, a resource. And another very important thing this shows me is that this game is alive. Enemies don't just exist to kill the player, they exist in their own world. They affect each other, they harm each other, they benefit each other, they change how they react with each other. Sometimes you have Hisi trying to kill bats because they don't like them. Sometimes you have ghosts giving a berserk effect to two Hisi shotgunners and they'll start attacking each other. And you can take advantage of that. You could kill the ghost early and save the shotgunners. Maybe you want them alive for something else. Or you could leave the berserkers there and have the Hisi shotgunners kill each other. It's just one example of how this game is more than just enemies trying to kill you. It's enemies living in an ecosystem amongst each other. It's a game where the enemies are interacting with each other. They'll fight each other. They'll apply statuses to each other even without meaning to. There is a living, breathing ecosystem of different monsters here. And Coal Pits does a fantastic job of demonstrating that. Now, another thing Coal Pits does really well, which it will be a long walk before I can get over there, but it introduces a risk versus reward factor to the game in the form of the fungal caverns, I believe. I don't visit the fungal caverns very often, so I don't perfectly remember the name of it, but I believe that's the name of the biome. Now, something that fungal caverns does like I said earlier, is it introduces the risk-reward mechanic. And I find it interesting that this is in the second area of the game, rather than the first. As if it was the first biome, then it would be very easy for the player to simply walk into the first biome, take the very risky option, which I guess in the past would have been Bridge Boss Cheese, to get a big reward, and if it didn't work out, then they could just start another run at no risk to themselves. However, because they decided to put it on the second floor of the game rather than the first, it introduces this investment where, because they're already one floor deep into a run, or even 2 floors deep, they're now a lot more cautious to die. There's stakes on the line. If they die, they need to do the first and second floor all over again. And that orb right there this is another example of a rare enemy. There's a teleportation mage somewhere around me. I don't know where he is, but if he hits me with his orb, his projectile, then I will be susceptible to being teleported off screen. Yep, there's an example right there. I think he's trying to get into a fight with the He's the Alchemist. But that's just another example of a rare spawning noiser. And here, as I said earlier, is the fungal caverns. So the fungal caverns, again, this isn't a place I visit too often, as I feel there's a few things to learn here. First of all, you can learn that Noiser rewards you for taking risks. Now, it isn't always going to reward you for taking risks. Sometimes there's an unwinnable scenario, and Noiser tries its best to teach you that. For example, there's a lot of blobs here. Maybe I shouldn't be fighting these. I don't have the best attacking wand, but as long as I'm patient, I can probably take care of them. However, if there was maybe a blinding mage, maybe a few teleport mages, then it would be worth my time to just back off and not take the risk entering the fungal caverns. This is a perfect example of why I don't really like visiting the fungal caverns. The blobs here are difficult to deal with if you don't have enough DPS, and I feel this as another very indirect but brilliant example of the game teaching the player that they want to make good wands as soon as possible. It challenges the player to make a good wand, as because these blob enemies and a lot of other enemies here are so tanky, so durable, they have so much health behind them, it challenges the player. Hey, you think this basic bouncing burst wand is good? No, it's not good. It's not good enough. It spits in the player's face. It says, "Is that the best you've got?" And then laughs at you. And no, I don't think this is the best I've got. So maybe because of spite or some other reason, you're suddenly incentivized to make a better wand. You say, hey, maybe instead of bouncing burst, I'll put a Swordblade Orbit on my Sparkbolt with trigger. Or maybe I'll have a Sparkbolt with trigger with a Chainsaw on it. You know, any number of things have a bigger DPS output that normally wouldn't be attainable. And that's just one of the subtle things, again, that Cold Pits does indirectly, even if it's because of the fungal caverns. By having that there, it is challenging the player to do better, to be better at the game. And the game never says, hey, your wand is very weak, maybe you shouldn't be in this area. It just straight up says, hey, here's some strong enemies, good luck. It doesn't even go as far as to say good luck, it just puts the strong enemies there, and if you can't kill them, then that's entirely on you. You should have made a better wand. So by having these durable enemies, it's indirectly teaching the player to get better at the wand building mechanics of Noita. Which, again, is one of those very subtle things Cold Pits does to encourage the player to be better at Noita in general. It makes them think, how can I make my wand better than it was before? How can I get more damage? How can I be more cautious? There's a lot of things going on here in the player's mind. And that's just one of the things, again, that I really love about the coal pits, which I think puts it above most other levels. I really do think coal pits is a special place that not many other places in Norse can really compare to, or even hold a candle to. It's a very special place, and I love this floor. It's very beautiful architecturally. All the glittering gold makes me happy. I feel good picking this stuff up. The coal burns. It shows this place is alive. Every pixel is simulated. The gold shows that. The coal shows that. The water shows that. The lava, the slime, the blood. Everything shows that the pixels are simulated here. Look, this mage is charmed. I'm being shown status effects because of the alchemist that only spawns in the coal pits, not the mines beforehand. This is an experience I need to find in the coal pits, not anywhere else. And it is amazing. Beautifully so. Now, is there anything I wish coal pits had more of? Maybe anything more special to it? I think a very low-hanging fruit to go for in that question would be more content in general. Specifically, more rare things that can occur. Maybe a very rare structure. We already have the Steam puzzle, which is another good example teaching the player there's simulated pixels, there's puzzle solving in this game, you might need to think a bit. It shows the player that. But I want to see even more rare things. Maybe there could be a supermassive worm that appears here extremely rarely. Maybe there could be a very rare pixel scene where there's an entire horde of Heesy shotgunners just taking up residence, and there's a special spell behind all of them for you to get your hands on. Maybe there could be a unique weather event down here where there's just pheromone everywhere in Berserkium. And it's kind of an all-out war almost between the enemies, and it's your job to survive amongst the chaos. There's so many interesting things that could be going on here, and by no means am I saying that Coal Pits is bad because it doesn't have those things. I'm saying that Coal Pits is already such a almost perfect biome that I think it would be incredible to just see more, to take what's already here and elevate it further. An alternative approach to that would be taking a lot of the best parts about coal pits and putting them in other biomes. Maybe other biomes could have these unique enemies where they bleed maybe a special liquid where if you touch it, you start moving backwards or something. You know, you could have enemies that bleed Fluxium while being immune to Fluxium themselves. Maybe you could have a bunch of fireflies where instead of being fire themed, they could be teleportatium themed. You know, if you start shooting them, they'll spray teleportatium everywhere, something to be very cautious of. Magical bugs. If they hit you, they could deflect you with teleportitis status. There's really a lot of things you could extrapolate from this. You could have maybe a mini boss down here because while we have the fungal caverns, we don't have anything like a dragon or Squidward or anything like that. And while it may be redundant to have a mini boss down here when there's the dragon down below and Squidward up above, I think even in a more traditional mini boss would be interesting, where it's not a full-on boss, it's not a pit boss, it's not a dragon, not a Colmy, it's not a Mecha Colmy, nothing like that. Instead, we could just have a... what would be good? Like a very big bat, for example. Maybe he has a small health bar over his head in world. It's like purple themed, has bat wings coming off of it. And maybe he'll spit out big bats, which then spit out small bats of their own. I guess one problem I could see there is it'd be very easy to get overwhelmed. There's too many bats coming out at once. You physically don't have enough DPS for it. maybe it'd be hard to run away from and that would cause trouble. So maybe it could be something else. Maybe there could be a firefly boss, like a big firefly boss. And the boss in right somewhere. I know that the worst enemies mod does that. That's more of a full-on boss though, rather than a mini-boss. You know, I don't know, I feel like there's a whole world of possibilities here. That's... Again, I don't feel like Noisa or the culprits even is worse off without. I just feel it would be very interesting to see what would be possible. How far can we take culprits to a high level? I want to see just how far this biome can go. Since, again, look at it, it has a beautiful background. There's very small details here, like the fauna, there's mushrooms here. Which I believe with the right one, you can shoot them. Let me try the bliss bomb. No, I know there's certain... Yeah, look at that, the spark ball, I think got it. Where I can break that background mushroom, and then I can eat it, get the tripping effect. Or, I guess that one didn't give me the tripping effects I wanted, but food poisoning, close enough. Let's see if I can do it again here. Where, yep, I shoot the mushroom, then I eat it. And this is a good way, if I want to empty my stomach, for example, all I need to do is shoot the mushrooms. That one's covered in vomit, so I can't really use it. Where's another one? That one has vomit too, so I can't use that one. Where's a good mushroom I could use, for example? Here we go. So let's say I ingest some water, right? Oh, I don't want to be at 48% satiation, so I'll shoot the mushroom with my spark bolt. I'll eat it. I'll get the food poisoning side effect. And then when I throw up, every time I throw up, I lose 10% of my satiation. And that's a excellent way to remove stomach contents. You can do this with slime too. Eat this, get food poisoning. And you will rapidly lose stomach contents as long as you keep throwing up. I guess I didn't eat enough there to start vomiting, but if I keep going for a bit. There we go. 30%. Come on, buddy. Well, it's not properly demonstrating now. There we go. 20%, 10%, and even 0% eventually. But that's just one of the very small details where you can shoot these mushrooms off, get the fungus, and then go up to remove your stomach contents if you feel your stomach is too full. Maybe it's at 100%, maybe you're bloated, you can't walk around like you normally could, and you need to get rid of that, so that's something you could do. Another one of those instances where Naughty teaches you that every pixel is simulated, even these ones which you think are in the background and you can't interact with, you can interact with them. The choice is there. There's so many possibilities in this game, and Colpitz teaches you almost all of them. Now, obviously Colpitz can't teach you everything. There's things you won't be able to learn here, like orb rooms, maybe how to do certain alchemy recipes. Colpitz doesn't need to be everything, and I think that's another one of its pluses, honestly. The fact that it isn't everything. As if Colpitz was capable of everything, every tiny thing, maybe you could get an orb room here, you could learn every alchemy thing here, the recipes, this, that, then Colpitz would be too good. There wouldn't be a reason to leave Colpitz. You're just staying Colpitz for the entirety of your duration here. Your duration playing Noisa. And just farm it into 100% the biome. But I don't think that's the point. Colpitz is one of those places where you're meant to get the resources you need from it. And then leave. You don't need to stay around here forever. You can stay here and farm for as many hearts as you want. You know, encouraging that exploration, encouraging that persistence, but it's not encouraging you to bang your head against the wall repeatedly, in a sense. Colpitz wants you to explore, but doesn't want you to explore the same place over and over and over again. It's telling you to get a move on when it's time to go. While it shows you a lot of cool things you can get here, it's also showing you that not everything can be earned in one place, that you need to explore the world to find what's out there. You'll need to keep on going, like it or not, to find 100% of Noita. And that, in a way, is another one of the very good things that I like about coal pits. Sometimes having downsides, weak points even, is a plus in a way. Since I think a lot of your best Noita runs, while they can be described about what was good about them, it's a lot more memorable the parts that were bad about them. For example, you could remember that one run where maybe I went to Squidward, I went to Pit Boss, and I accidentally cast Giga Black Hole on him, and everything went crazy all over my screen. That would be really memorable. Maybe you don't remember that time you had a really lucky time surviving a bunch of shots you shouldn't have been able to dodge. Maybe you don't remember the one where you got really good RNG, got really lucky spells in the first Holy Mountain. But you do remember that time you had a ton of Giga Black Holes all over the screen because of Squidward. And in a similar vein, I think you remember those times where Coal Pits gives you no hearts to get, where it's just completely barren and there's no max health ups to get. I think you remember those times where a swarm of firebugs just overwhelmed you. There were too many of them and they got you. You remember that time where you tried to farm infinite gold from a big bat and you messed up completely and accidentally killed it. It's these moments which I think are the most memorable, not just in Noita, but in life. These silly little mistakes which just stick in your memory. You can laugh about them in the future. You can tell everyone about that time you blundered wildly trying to get infinite gold or anything else. I think that's part of the magic of coal pits. And it shows coal pits knows its place. It's perfectly imperfect. Coal Pits does its job of demonstrating so many mechanics of this game. Every pixel is simulated, you can export the game, there's enemy variety, so many unique things going on here. So many small, microscopic details you'll probably never notice normally. But Coal Pits here. It teaches you these things. It doesn't offer you godlike power, but it sets you up to obtain that godlike power. It educates you. It teaches you. Coal Pits is your mentor. And for that reason, that's why I believe that Coal Pits, very strongly, is the best biome in Noita, long and by far. I don't think any other biome will be able to compare to Coal Pits in years, decades even. Maybe there'll be more mods that come out, complete content overhauls. Maybe there'll be new vanilla updates where entire new biomes are added. But I don't think it will compare to Coal Pits. Coal Pits is special, it's one of a kind. It's created to a science almost. In fact, I could even argue that it is. So, thank you for watching. Genuinely, I think Coal Pits is the best role in the game. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.